Alright, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back. My name is Alex, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the build that I use to farm up all of my gear. This is what I've been using, the last 2 weeks or so. And I used to use the Technomonger set, but I feel like this is a little bit quicker. It's a little bit more deliberate. And the set that I'm using with this build is going to be the MAXWELL'S Demon set. Now, this is going to be a pure firepower set. There's really no bells and whistles, like we're just straight doing damage with our weapon. Even in the end game area, the arbiters, they go down in like, 30-40 seconds, depending on if you can get like a lot of crits. Now, this isn't the most fun build to use, but it does do a lot of damage, and it's really good for farming. So I'm sharing that with you guys today, and let's get into it. Now, there has been 2 ways that I've run this build. One is just pure damage with, like not that much survivability. And the other is still really good damage, but you have stronger heals. And we'll talk about that when I get to the packs tree. But before we go there, I'm actually going to go over the weapons first because it's pretty important. You're going to need yourself a really good ad clearing weapon. And what I use here is pretty much my favorite gun in the game. It's going to be the Emerald Chaos, and it has Nikolai's Revenge in the 3rd slot. It has Noxious Spawns in the 1st slot, and I rolled Dimensional Rockets. This is really good for ad clear. It clears out, rooms of enemies pretty quickly, and it's just so much AoE splash damage that, things just die. And, that's specifically for ad clear. Now, what I use for boss damage is going to be the Migraine Legendary SMG. And I like this one because it comes with Brain Eater in the 2nd slot guaranteed. And if you can roll Dark Sacrifice in the 3rd slot, that means in the 1st slot you can put something else that's really good. And Brain Eater is really good because as long as you get crits, you won't use ammo. So that is really good against the Arbiter because they got a pretty big crit spot. And I actually have 2 that I've been trying out. I kind of rotate back and forth between the 2, but one has Fortress rolled on the 1st slot and the other one has Weakness Trap rolled in the 1st slot. So they're both really good. It just, I don't really know which one does more damage, but they both do really good damage. So I guess it really doesn't matter. And of course, Dark Sacrifice, that's when you're in combat, your weapon drains up to 25% of your max health, but in exchange, you get 35% weapon damage. So that is super strong. And yeah, this is what I use for boss damage. So let's move on to the actual armor. And of course, like I said before, I'm going to be using the MAXWELL'S Demon set. And what this set bonus does is, I'm just going to read it. Each successful assault weapon shot grants you a firepower bonus that stacks up to 50%. So that's really strong. That's actually a lot of damage, but it gets better. To reach the bonus, half of the weapon's magazine has to be a successful shot. So you actually have to hit 50% of your shots. And then upon achieving maximum stacks, the firepower bonus is raised to 100%, and burn is applied to both you and, enemies within 15 meters. And that stays active until you, reload or swap weapons, or you use half of the magazine of your current weapon. So in a nutshell, just breaking that down, you just want to fire your weapon into a boss, to like some enemies, whatever. When you see yourself catch on fire, that means you have the 100% firepower boost. At that point, just activate your skills, that whatever gives you more damage, and then you're going to have a pretty big damage window. And then of course that's going to go away, and then you just rinse and repeat. So with that being said, let's actually move on to the actual armor. And of course, we're going to be using 3-piece MAXWELL'S Demon. This only comes in the head slot, the chest slot, and the pants. They don't have gloves or boots, so of course we have to use these slots. Now, starting off with the helmet, we got pretty unlucky on this one. Now, it seems like this would be a good perk, but we don't have a lot of status power. And what we got in the 3rd slot was Alchemo Mastery. Whenever Blighted Rounds is active, we get a weapon damage or anomaly power boost equal to 15% of our status power. We don't really have a lot of stats power on this build, like 14% or something like that. So it is just free damage, but something else could have rolled here and would have been better off for the build. But, bad luck, it is what it is. And it comes with Dum Dum Bullets in the 2nd slot. This is going to be, easy 12% damage boost, increase all assault weapon damage by 12%, and a roll license to heal in the 1st slot. So what this does is, whenever you activate Fixing Wave, you get a 10% weapon damage boost and 4 seconds of infinite ammo. This would have been perfect if this rolled in the 3rd slot, so we could have put something else in the 1st slot, but it is what it is. Now moving on to the chest piece, we have To the Bone rolled in the 3rd slot, and this is actually okay. This isn't too bad. This could also be replaced as well though. And what this does is your Blighted Rounds give you 15% anomaly damage. Now this does affect Blighted Rounds, so you are getting extra damage from this, but like I said before, something else could be rolled here. even Deadlock, which we have rolled in the first slot. If that had rolled in the third slot, this would have been perfect. That would have freed up another mod slot. And since we're talking about Deadlock, what this does, you get a 8% weapon damage boost for every skill that's on cooldown. So that's really good. You'll mostly have, just 1 or 2 skills on cooldown, but sometimes 3, depending on if you run out of bullets on your bloody rounds. And of course, we have Personal Space, which grants you 12% bonus to close range weapon damage. So if you're using a submachine gun or enemies are, in your vicinity, you're going to be getting a 12% damage boost. This is pretty good for the build, especially for the arbiters. So moving on to the pants, we got Super Lucky here. We got Virulent Compound that rolled in the third slot. This is going to give you 10% more damage to elites affected by Toxic or Blightfire. And they're pretty much always going to be affected by Toxic. So this is super good. And Bloodlust rolls on these pants all the time. So your critical shots will increase your firepower by 69,000 right here. Stacks up to 3 times. It's not the best perk, but it was better than what was in the first slot, I believe. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but we rolled a Euthanizer there, so deals 16% more damage to enemies afflicted by Toxic. And Euthanizer is pretty much a staple for Technomancer builds. Like, you just do so much toxic damage, so that kind of goes without being said that it's always good to have this on your Technomancer builds. Now moving on to the gloves, we are using Cannonball gloves, so Gauntlets of the Cannonball. We have Radical Therapy in the third slot, so that's another 8% damage to enemies afflicted by Toxic. We have Captain Hunter in the first slot, which is another staple in pretty much any build focused around boss damage. And I rolled Kingslayer in the second slot. So with Kingslayer, whenever you get a critical hit on the elite, your firepower goes up by 698,000 for 10 seconds. There's no cooldown on that, so pretty much it's always up whenever you're getting crits. So that's really good. Now the boots, I actually like these boots a lot because it rolls with bonus firepower, long range damage, and close range damage on here. And it rolls with Bad Medicine in the third slot. Now Bad Medicine actually isn't that bad, especially when you're kind of like, surrounded by enemies. It actually does okay damage, and it's just easy heal, just free damage pretty much whenever enemies, get a little bit too close to you. And we also got lucky with this. We got Emergency Stance in the second slot. Now this is just pretty much for, like a oops moment, like, something hits you in the back, you're not really paying attention. Those melee guys, they hit pretty hard when you don't have a lot of health. So this is really good. You don't need it for the build. You could replace this with something else if you get better boots. And I also rolled Quartermaster in the first slot. Now you pretty much need this for the build. And what this does is whenever you use your Fixing Wave, you're going to replenish your magazine for you and your allies, in the vicinity. So this is really good. It's really strong. I would highly suggest, using it in this build because it just helps you keep your bladder rounds up pretty much infinitely. And that's pretty much it for the actual armor. So let's move on to the class tree. Now the class tree is pretty simple. I'm not going to break the entire thing down. I'm just going to put it up on the screen. But the main node you're going to want here is Exposing Toxin, so that whenever you apply Toxic on something, it gets applied with Vulnerable as well. Marked for Execution, that's really good. You're going to want Assault Master, because your assault weapon damage increased by 20%, so you really can't go without that one. 2 Sides of Power, increased damage received as well as increased damage dealt by 10%, so a little bit of a double-edged sword there. And of course the last one, Empowering Antenna. Whenever you throw down your turret, 30% weapon damage for 8 seconds for you and your allies, so that's really good, really helpful. And yeah, just copy paste this tree. It's pretty simple. Like I said before, it's just for farming, nothing intricate here, nothing complicated. And on a packs tree, there's actually 2 ways you could run this. I run top tree most of the time, but sometimes you can run bottom tree. And on top tree, I take Initial Striker, I take Brain Dead, I take Painkiller, I take Permanence, and I also take Dissection. So all of those in combination, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. And if you decide to go bottom tree, because it works on bottom tree as well, you could take the Undying node, take Accelerator, take Apothecary. Apothecary is one of the best heals in the game, hands down. We're going to take Biosync, we're going to go middle tree, and then we're going to take Kinetic Converter. So I was using this for the longest time. I was just using this to stay alive. I could farm without really paying attention, but lately I've been using top tree and it's been working out fine, although you don't get as many heals with top tree. So, just be careful. Go whichever tree is, more beneficial for you. Top tree, more damage, more glass cannony. Bottom tree, bigger heals, still decent damage. So choose whichever one you want right there. And that's pretty much it for the build. Like I said, nothing too complicated, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it is really good for farming. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Of course, I'll leave links to, some showcases of the build of, running some end-game areas and stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, that's all I got. My name is Alex. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that shenanigans. And I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.